Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast episode. My name is Alicia Gogan, the host of the Glow Up Secrets podcast, where I help you expand your mind and become more self-aware so that you can glow up into the best version of yourself. Hello, happy Sunday. I hope everyone is doing well. If you're watching on YouTube, yes, we have got a new background, slowly but surely. We are not finished. And if you're listening to on audio, I basically added 2 shelves behind me so I could put my book and some of my favorite things. I feel like I want to put like a little plant here. We'll see. We have the YouTube plaque from the second channel, and then we have the butterfly, but I think I will actually be changing that to something else. But for now, this is what we are doing, and I've been wanting shelves behind me for so long, so I'm really happy that we're changing up things. We're adding more to the studio. I hope you guys like it, and I hope you guys like today's episode. And I wanted to talk about how to let yourself be happy. So I have a complex relationship with allowing myself to be happy and be proud of myself and receive good things and trust that good things are going to continue to happen and that I even deserve any of these things. And I always can tell when I'm still holding myself back and not allowing good things to come in or allowing myself to be happy about something when there are good things happening in my life because I'm so aware of myself. So lately in my life, I feel like I am a lot more happier than I have been in a lot of months. I went through a really terrible flare up the entire winter, and then I lost my mom. So the past, I would say like 2 months, like January, February, it was the most depressing time of my entire life. And I grieved, and I'm still grieving in a way that I believe is actually really healthy, and it was pretty good. I think that I did a really good job. I think life prepared me for that. But at the end of the day, I still had to deal with the emotional side of grieving, which is it's just loss. It's heartbreak. It doesn't matter how well you handle things or how many people are around you. It's just really hard. But I knew there was going to come a time where I would feel better. And I think around the end of February, I really started to feel more lighter and like I was looking forward to life a little bit more. But I even witnessed in that coming out of the grieving process a little bit is this part of me that was kind of like, no, you're not allowed. You're not allowed to move out of this, but believe that things will get better. And I had to have a lot of trust in the unknown. I connected with God very, very deeply. I still do, but it was definitely a challenge in my mind to continue to remind myself that I will get good things in my life, but it's really gonna be up to me. Like it was really me versus me when it came to happiness and receiving good things and believing that good people, places, and things are gonna come into my life, especially after going through something so hard. It's so understandable. So I kind of want to talk about why sometimes we can hold ourselves back and where this might be coming from. At least like I'm going to give you guys my backstory. I'm going to give you guys some journal prompts that you can journal on if you find yourself in any of these scenarios of holding your happiness back or even like your laughter or your excitement for life. So I have struggled with this a lot in my personal life because of my past and my upbringing. And I talk about this a lot, but you know, so many things come back down to the way that you were raised and if you were constantly living in survival mode or not, realistically. When you even live paycheck to paycheck, when you live in a lower socioeconomic status environment, when you live a life of struggle, or there's relationships around you, family dynamics that are stressful, they're dysfunctional, whatever the case is, it does prime you to be on the lookout. And when your nervous system is constantly in fight or flight, you're constantly on and worried about things and stressed about things, you don't really have room to be in that opposite nervous system regulation, which would be rest and digest. It would be, okay, I can rest here because I know and trust that people are going to show up for me, that I am not in constant threats, the bills are being paid, I have good friendships, whatever it is, right? There's so many life circumstances. And honestly, all of us in some sort of the way have definitely lived in fight or flight at one point in our lives. And although I definitely had great memories and great, even like parenting, especially from my mom, like so many beautiful memories and so many things that allowed me to be a child and to be happy, there were still so many things that I responded to by shutting myself down because in my nervous system, in my brain, I don't have time to be happy. I don't have time to trust. I can't trust. I also had a father that was so strict on me, that really pushed me into a shell. I was afraid to express myself, right? And if we're thinking about happiness, it's an expression of you really feeling joy for life, and yes, being grateful for life, but just like smiling and laughing and letting yourself just be, not trying to control yourself, control your emotions, push things down and suppress them. And I was around a parent who really taught me the opposite. I also had a lot of irritation with my mom, and I think a lot of people can relate to this because I've seen this on TikTok where there's this, I forget what it's called, but you love your parent, let's say your mom, you love your mom, but you almost like every single time you're around her or you speak to her, it's like you can't help but kind of be irritated, or maybe you have a little bit of attitude towards her, or even your dad. But I find, or at least I've looked into it, it's more like with mothers and things like that. And I always never really understood why I was like that. I thought maybe it was because I was like in my teenage years, when you're a teenager, like you have attitude and you're like, you don't want your parents around and this, that. And maybe that is true. But as I got older, I realized, I was holding back a lot of my love that I actually wanted to give to her because of the things that I witnessed in childhood, the ways that I felt like she didn't protect me. And of course, as she went through her addictions in my later years, I had to become the parent that I actually needed myself. And so I held some resentment and I held some anger. And when you're holding those emotions down, but even like you're operating out of those things, where's the happiness? Where's the love? Where's the receiving? Where's the resting? Or even when it comes to having somebody treat you right, let's say in a relationship where somebody wants to show up for you consistently, or they want to give you things, or they give you compliments, or, praise. Even outside of relationships, you can think about work. For me, it's always kind of been a foreign concept to have people show up consistently for me. So when it does happen, it's kind of like, okay, I can't trust this. Is this real? Do I deserve this? Or sometimes you're not even looking for those qualities in people, places, and things in your life. And so the reason why I'm talking about this is, for one, I think we get really down on ourselves and we are hard on ourselves when we realize we are maybe acting out of irritation or frustration or anger, or we're locking ourselves up and we don't know why, or we're shy. I was such a shy child, and I still have those parts of me to this day. And honestly, I've learned that it's actually fine. But regardless of whatever it is, when we realize we don't allow ourselves to receive, I think the whole like masculine energy, feminine energy movement, when us women realize, we're operating out of these things, we're kind of like, fuck, like that's not what we're supposed to be doing in relationships and this, that. That's a whole separate conversation. But we don't necessarily love that, right? Because either one, we've been shamed about it, or we've, had people around us maybe complain about it, or you have an attitude, or you have this and that. And it's not to accept all of these things, right? We're going to talk about that. But on the flip side, I think deep down, a lot of us know that we don't want to be like this. Like I remember having attitude towards my mom, like I didn't want to be like that, but I didn't know how else to be. And even when it came to like compliments or people showing up for me, it was such an awkward, weird experience. Or even when it's like me being shy, I even remember when I was younger, like wanting desperately to like hang out with this group of friends, but I was so afraid to go up because I was afraid of rejection, or was afraid of, what people would think of me. And I just didn't have that space really when I was younger to feel safe enough to go up and hang out and do these things. But I wanted to so bad. It almost just feels like your energy is frozen, it's stuck, it's suppressed. And this is what I say. It is not your fault that that's how your nervous system is, or that's how you've been in your life, or that's been your experience. But it is going to be up to you to defrost this energy, right? To let yourself out, to be the person that you want to be. You do have a heart. You want to be happy. You have this excitement for life that you really want to express, or you want to receive. You want to be that person, but it's going to be you who gives yourself that gift. And this is what I have done in my life, in the way that I think could maybe help you guys if you resonate with this, is you really want to look at yourself as if you have an inner child, right? So the part of you that is shy, that is irritated, that has anger, resentment, anything, right? The one that's shut off, it's a young part of you that learned how to do these things. And so this journey of allowing yourself to be happy or experiencing life more or receiving more or not being so shy, it's really this journey of unlocking your inner child's potential. And so in my life, when I see myself shy, cooped up and no, you can't, or even my own habits of making my weeks more difficult than they need to be and not allowing myself to romanticize my life, any of those things, I try to remind myself, like, I can give my inner child the gift that she's always deserved of being out of this jail cell, expressing herself more. It's up to me, and I have that key and I can give it to her. Your inner child, your inner parts, they have a lot of potential and they have a lot of happiness and love to give out. And unfortunately, your life circumstance has kind of created that shell. Like everyone, we all have that shell. And it's not to be mad at ourselves for that. It's about seeing how can we work with the potential that we have and that happiness and let it out a little bit more the way we need to. Not pushing, not berating, not being pissed off, not doing it too fast, too much, too soon, but going on this journey of unlocking your inner child's potential. Now, I actually created a inner child discovery journal prompt guide. It's digital. A lot of you guys have already purchased it. You guys have loved it. You guys use it over and over again, but I am just going to mention it here because I actually think that guide is so perfect for this topic. And basically it has a lot of journal prompts that you can go through. You can either print it out or you can just like write it in like digitally once you download it, or you can just use those prompts and write it in your own journal. But there's a lot of shadow work journal prompts where you are going deep into some of the things that you hold back within yourself and you are questioning it. You're getting deeper into why. Where is this coming from? Why am I holding these things back? Who taught me to suppress these things about me? Whether it is your laughter or your happiness or, the way that you want to express yourself in your life. And how can you start to connect back to that inner child? What does your inner child need to hear from you now that you're an adult? So for those who do not have that guide and you want that guide, I will have it linked down below. I think what I'll do is just make it $5 for the first 24 hours or the first day that this podcast episode goes live, just for all the OGs. And when I mean OGs, I mean the people who are just always on watching the episodes every Sunday. And if you already have the guide, you can go back and, maybe there's something currently in your life where you find that you're holding back in, go through those prompts again. I do that all the time. But of course, I do want to give you a few prompts as well that I've taken myself through and that you guys can use on this episode right now. So if you find that you've been in a very low mood, you are not excited for life, you feel depressed, you feel anxiety ridden, you're just not really happy, then here is a few prompts that you can bring yourself through to try and move some of this energy. So the first question that you can ask yourself is, what is my way of shutting myself off from happiness, love, abundance, anything? And there's probably a lot of ways. I have really sifted through so much of how I have been, my personality, the way I show up in life, and there's been so many things, and I've already kind of mentioned them, but I had attitude towards my mom and I had to go deep into that. Other ways would be not acknowledging my accomplishments. That is something that I'm currently really working through. There's definitely many times where I hold back in even a smile or a laugh. I used to do that a lot in high school. I would be defensive towards things or people. There are so many ways that I have shut off myself, which directly affects the happiness that I'm going to experience in life because I don't let people in and I also don't let myself out. And so the second thing you can ask yourself is, why am I doing this and where is it coming from? So coming back to acknowledging my success, for me, I've lived my life in survival mode and always having to hit goals to survive. No one was really saving me or doing it for me. And so I created this minimum standard for myself, which is success. Success and doing things the right way and getting things done and being successful and hitting the goal is the bare minimum. So when I am successful in something, and let's say, I have the plaque or I got my book or I hit a goal in the gym or whatever it is, to me, it's yeah, that's just the standard. Yeah, that's just what it should be. That's just what it has to be. Like there's no other option. And that kept me safe for so long, and it still does, and it's gotten me to where I'm at. But then sometimes it can definitely affect the way that you continue to work, because you're constantly always working and you're never feeling this sense of real accomplishment, because you're like, yep, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. Like you want to feel. In life, we really want to feel deeply. And I think, you can do that for a very long time, but usually it comes to a point where you're not happy. You don't feel anything. And that's obviously an issue. There was many times in my childhood where it was apparent to me that there was no room for laughing and play and having fun. And so I shut myself off in other environments, whether it was at school or around friends, whatever the case is, because that's just how I was primed. And so I also never had that much experience with allowing myself to be and play and do. And so when I was around people who would be and play and do, I would feel like I don't know how to do it. This feels weird. Am I allowed to do it? Am I allowed to be happy? Da, da, da. It just felt very uncomfortable for me. Also, allowing somebody to show up for me was also very foreign. So when somebody would show up for me in relationships, it kind of made me feel like I was really seen and heard, which also made me feel uncomfortable because that wasn't something that I was comfortable with feeling. I also talked about that I don't know if it was last week's episode. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was my episode on moving from anxious avoidant to secure. So I'll link that down below if you struggle with like fearful avoidant patterns where you want the love, but as soon as it comes close, you're like, no, I'm good. It feels so weird. So there's a lot of things, and there's a lot of reasons why. There's always a reason why we are the way that we are. But I actually try not to focus too much on the why, like, oh, it was my dad or it was my mom or it was my life circumstance. Because sometimes we can get stuck in the pattern of like, the woe is me and I'm the victim and this, that, even though you can be and you are. We're all victims in some sense of the case, like always. But I think what's actually more important is to do a practice. And this is something that you can do every day. You can do it weekly. You can do it anytime you feel triggered. This is something that's been so big for me, and I've talked about it a lot, and Nicole Sachs has talked about it a lot, but I just call it the emotional release practice. And this is really releasing your feelings, your emotions, your real thoughts about people, places, and things, or your life circumstance that has created some of these parts within you that might be frozen and stuck, right? So for instance, and this kind of like correlates to parts work as well, but essentially you want to have a conversation with the part of you that has the attitude, let's say, right? So me, Alicia, 29 years old, I'm like my higher self here. I'm really trying to work on some of the things that I want to when it comes to my inner child or whatever. It also doesn't have to be your inner child. It could be like teen. So for me, okay, I want to have a conversation with the part of me that just has so much attitude. So I'm going to ask her to speak. What do you have to say? If you could just say anything you needed to say and no one was ever going to see those words or hear those words, your mom's not going to know. Nope. We're going to rip up these pieces of paper when we're done. What do you have to say? And you let her speak and you let her write. And she has a lot of things to say. Okay. And she probably will cry. And when I mean you will probably cry. You will feel things. There's a lot. Okay. And some people need to do this in like a therapeutic session, but I've always done these things on my own. So to each their own, but I just think it's a really good practice. And this is why you can't go back and you cannot change the way that you were raised. And sometimes you're still in those relationships with parents and those dynamics where things won't change. Your parent still won't be a parent, or your parent still shuts you down, or whatever the case is. Now, obviously, you need to have boundaries and those things as you grow up, but what you can do is you can allow yourself to actually bring up the feelings that you've been suppressing all of your life, and you can let them out. And it doesn't need to be to that person, but you let them out in a practice, like a journal practice. You even rip those pieces of paper up, but you get deeper into what you're actually feeling. And a lot of people are afraid to go there because it's like, well, if I bring all these emotions up and these feelings up, what am I supposed to do about it? You're not supposed to do anything about it. This is the thing. I think that we are so stuck in a culture where it's like, okay, well, what do I do about this thing? I need to fix this thing. I need to fix myself. I need to fix my inner child. It's not about fixing. It's just about acknowledging. It's just about being there. And, I'm not a mom, but I do know that, when a child is crying or sad or this, that, you're not really going to the child to be like, let me fix it to the point where like I'm gonna get you to stop crying. Like obviously on one hand, like that's basically what you'd want to do as a parent. Maybe there is something wrong and you do want your child to not cry, but sometimes it's just about soothing, it's just about picking up your baby, your child, who knows why they're crying, the inner child, you never know. But it's just the soothing. It's the I'm here for you. I see you. I acknowledge you. Your feelings are real. Okay? I'm not trying to change your feelings. I'm trying to be with you. I'm trying to get you to understand that I am here with you. I get it. Sometimes that's all you even need. If you're talking to a part of you that just feels not understood and you're annoyed by life, you're annoyed with everyone because nobody gets it. No, I'm just doing this alone. Nobody gets it. Okay, have a conversation with that part of you. It's like, yeah, I get it, right? Nobody really does get it, to be honest. Like, I think about the life that I have lived. I have, for the most part, always been that friend that was doing the self-development work and having a life circumstance that was much different than most of my friends. Not to say that they didn't have their own things going, but, I had a really, really hard time. And there's definitely points where it's like, it's not fair. Like people get to have these things and I don't, You have to let that out. You have to acknowledge and allow yourself to feel that because it's real and you feel it. And if you don't, you'll suppress it. But those feelings and those emotions don't go away. A lot of those times it turns into physical ailments. And I will recommend a book, Mind Your Body by Nicole Sachs, if you're interested in that. The mind-body connection is so real. Now, after you've discovered some of the ways that you hold yourself back and shut yourself off and you allow those feelings, those real feelings to come out and you really explore where this is all coming from, right? This is you really cultivating a deep relationship with yourself. The game can change. And I don't mean you're going to change overnight just because you know these things about yourself, but you're going to be able to be more aware of when you are going into that state of let me lock myself up. And when you're more aware of the states that you're going in, the different parts that you're going in, you can see it's just a part of me. I don't have to allow this part to take over me. I don't have to become this part. I don't have to act constantly out of this part. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, if I'm not going to operate out of the shyness or the defensiveness, like what can I operate out of? And obviously that's going to be a journey and a practice anyways. But another thing that you can journal on is who would I be if I didn't push my inner child into its shell, or just allow your inner child to go automatically into its shell like it always has. And I just want to make this clear once again, it's a protection mechanism. Don't get mad at yourself because you do these things. And this is where you can really allow your potential to come out, right? And this is another practice where you want to be honest and be real, even if it feels like scary to even say these things. But who would you be if you weren't so defensive, if you didn't have attitude all the time, if you weren't mad at the world or mad at your parents or shy all the time or constantly push people away? How would your life look? How would you feel? Maybe you'd be doing completely different things than you're doing right now when it comes to work or hobbies. Maybe you would allow yourself to dance or sing or do the thing that you shut off from in childhood. Maybe you'd be laughing at way more things. Maybe you would have such a light heart throughout the day that you'd be going on walks and you'd be smiling at people and you wouldn't be taking everything so seriously and you wouldn't be constantly looking around and, thinking that everyone hates you, is out to get you, or is judging you. Maybe you would prioritize rest more. Maybe you would actually sit for a second and be like, you know what? I wrote a book. That's actually sick. That's actually insane that I was able to publish a book. Maybe I would give myself a second to do those things. And maybe when I do more of those things and acknowledge myself and allow myself to be happy and receive, I'm going to have that more reflected back into my life. And this is what happens, guys. When you become the change, when you become happy, when you no longer have an attitude, when you let go of that anger and resentment, when you work through these things, when you acknowledge yourself for being a badass, guess what happens? People reflect that back to you. They start saying it to you more. And it's very simple to understand. When you're in a good mood, people are going to want to be around you more. When you're with a man, and you are willing to receive and you aren't pushing them away or being defensive or, having constant attitude because you're pushing them away from your heart. And I don't mean, you can't never have your days, but you know what I mean. That man, if he's a good man, is going to want to give you more. He's going to want to give you more because he wants to see you happy. People want to see you happy. People love to see happiness. People recognize it. Even you, if you're mad and you're mad at the world and you don't give yourself happiness or whatever, You see that happiness that other people have, and either you're jealous of it, or you're pissed off about it, or you wish you had it, or you tell yourself you don't need it, but regardless, you see it. Your heart and your soul recognizes it. So let's just go in that direction, because this is life, okay? So let's move ourselves more in that direction. Let's not pretend that this is not what we want deep down inside. And again, bringing it back to thinking about your inner child deserves it. If you can't look at yourself and be like, oh, I don't deserve, listen, your inner child does. And so when it comes to actually allowing yourself to be more happy and receive things and just enjoy life more, I think it's really about choosing that one thing that you constantly are operating out of, whether it's attitude, defensiveness, shyness, feeling numb in life, whatever, and telling yourself in the moment, why not this time? Why don't I just try to laugh at something today? Even if it's something small, why don't I just try to acknowledge for one moment the things that I have accomplished? Why not experiment with the idea that I am worthy of real healthy love? Why not? And, realistically, we're striving for the happy life. We're striving for the healthy relationship, all of these things, right? So if something's new in your life that's, kind of being like, hey, you want to be happy? Like, you want to experience this? You can, but you're afraid. Why not just try and allow yourself to be happy? Because what's the worst that's going to happen? Well, sometimes we're afraid because of the past, but this is where you want to step into the version of you who is resilient, okay? You can handle hard things. You have all of your life, realistically. And the reason why I know that, and I've had to tell myself this too, is you're still living today. Even in your hardest days, you still made it work. You still figured it out. And I even think when I was younger, when we would be stressing and struggling about money, I would always just be so stressed and so worried, right? And for good reason. But at the end of the day, we still figured it out. So why not use that same logic and apply it to some of the things in your life right now? You will always find a way. Things will always work out. So why not take a risk for you and your inner child to allow yourself to just receive and be happy? Even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it feels weird, you know why it feels uncomfortable. You know why it feels weird. Let's just try and do it, because realistically, it's not supposed to feel weird to be happy. It's not supposed to be nerve-wracking to be ourselves. It's not. It's just lies. It's things that we have learned in our lives that have kept us stuck. But that's not going to allow us to have a beautiful life. It's not going to allow us to build deeper relationships with people. And, you really have to remind yourself of that in these circumstances when you find you want to go back into that shell. And this is what I remind myself too, especially when it comes to fearful, avoidant attachment styles. The person that I am with wants to see more of me. I know I'm convinced that they don't. I know I'm convinced that no, you can't. It's cringe. You should be shy. You should lock it up. You should lock your laughter up. You shouldn't be happy. You shouldn't be excited. You shouldn't show people that you're excited. No, it's bullshit. It's lies that you have told yourself. You have convinced yourself that no, I can't be happy. But you've done that to protect yourself, because in your life at one point, someone really did teach you, if you were happy, if you let things out, if you were yourself, it's wrong. Okay. And that's all that it is. But it comes down to you telling yourself and reminding yourself in these moments when you start practicing allowing yourself to receive and be more happy. Now, I want to read one quote before we end the episode from Pinterest, of course. And it says, I rebuke every form of shyness or anxiety that will hinder me from opportunities this year. And the reason why I love this quote is I really do think that you need to approach this season of your life with a little bit of ownership of happiness and fulfillment and enjoyment in your life. Like, you really got to stand up for yourself and be like, I no longer am going to operate out of these places anymore because I don't deserve these things. I do not deserve to live a half-assed life. I do not deserve to accept the bare minimum. And I am way more than what I've been given in my life and what I have been convinced that I am in my life. You deserve good things. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to have a soft life. That's what you want. You deserve to receive good things. But it really all comes down to you giving yourself that gift. You have to do it. And I think that a lot of the times we're looking for those people, places, and things to give us that feeling, right? We're wanting the people to show up for us. We're wanting people to give us things. We're wanting opportunities, but we either push it away when it happens, or we're operating out of a place where we don't attract those opportunities. We can't. People are only really meeting you where you are at. So give yourself that gift. Fall in love with yourself again. Honestly, that's what it kind of comes down to. And maybe I can do an episode on falling in love with yourself again, or your own life, things like that. You can definitely let me know in the comments below, because I do think that that's really what it comes down to. Anyways, if you're watching on YouTube, of course we have our Italian stallion on the pod. He is nice and sleepy, and I granted myself some happiness by getting this dog, because I was like, you know what? We need a nice little greyhound over here. It truly makes me the happiest, and I love him. And there's many other things in my life that I am just owning. I'm just like, you know what? I love the parts of me that have kept me safe, but I don't need to. I don't need to be shy. I don't need to push things away. I deserve it. I can have it. Why not now? Why not? And the worst case, I'll be fine if it doesn't, if things don't work out, or if, I get rejected because I'm happy or I'm laughing today. It's really you against you, but it is a process. Give yourself so much time. I have been doing inner child healing and, recognizing the ways that I'm keeping myself shut off. And I've had to work through so many of these things. And a lot of these things come up in different phases of your life as well. And there's a lot of different practices that you can do. Maybe it's the affirmations, maybe it is journaling, maybe it's going to therapy. Sometimes it's about nervous system regulation. Sometimes it's about creating more clarity and stillness in your life, because I think stillness and even like connecting to spirituality, God, the universe, whatever it is that you connect with, I find that can really give you the strength that you need on the times where you naturally will operate from that old version of you. Like, you do need some stillness, because when we're operating out of old parts of us, it's because our nervous system is dysregulated and we're just in that fight or flight energy. So we're just going to go to the behavior that we've always done before. So creating some rest and digest in your life. And what I mean by that is calming your nervous system, meditations, guided meditations, making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure that you're connecting with yourself, making sure that you are getting rid of some toxic behaviors and habits and people in your life that do not serve you. How are you going to work on yourself and love yourself and unlock your inner child's potential when you're allowing toxic relationships in your life and the bare minimum or bad habits in your life? It's going to be very, very hard. You're going to be working against yourself. So really taking a look and an inventory about all of these things in your life. And again, if you guys want any sort of episodes on anything I just said, let me know in the comment section and or on Spotify and Apple, because we can definitely dive into it. I feel like the spring and moving into the summer, I really want it, at least for me, but also for you guys, because I know that we're kind of like on this journey together. I really want it to be a summer of falling in love with yourself and your life, because it's just the best place to be. And honestly, it's the way you manifest. It's the way you create more abundance and love and light and everything in your life. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, the journal guide, if you really want to go deeper on this topic, I think is just perfect for this episode, will be down below. Theo says goodbye. He loves you. He has his long legs out. He is literally a teenager at this point. It's crazy. You can follow me on Instagram. I have been posting a little bit of short form content if you guys have been listening to the last episode. And I love the fact that you guys have commented on some of my reels being like, yes, short form content queen, because you guys know that's been my goal. So I'm trying to do more and have a plan when it comes to short form. And with that said, you guys can follow me on Instagram, Alicia Gogan. And I also have like the podcast Instagram as well, which I'll probably post some stuff on there too. But with that said, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.